Hello, everyone. It's July 28, 2014. It's 2024. Here I am again. It is the last, this is the third video podcast I'm doing today. So I forgot to put the date on the other two. So you'll know that the last two were also July 28, 2024. I'll just show you the dress because I got this new wardrobe. I know I'm preaching and teaching, and it's kind of like a priest vestments. You've seen how fancy their vestments can be. You know, they're brocade. So here's the dress. I am pleased with it. Oh, look at the belt. The belt. I'm pleased with the dress, and it wasn't expensive. It's the belt, the golden belt. I got separately. Oh. I got it. It looks expensive, but it was not. It's from China. You know, everything is made in China these days. It used to be in the old days, it was made in Japan. Now it's made in China. Almost everything. Okay, so this is the only place I'll wear this dress. I have nowhere else to wear it. So there it is as a dress, the golden dress. All right, here's my subject today. And it's an interesting subject. I had a revelation concerning the face to face experience. Well, it's kind of like when I say revelation, it's kind of like, those things that you've said it, you know it, you've said it. And all of a sudden, you know it and see it in a new way, a different way, or something reminds you of the truth of something. And oh, bingo, bingo, a new revelation. And yet you've said it before, you knew it before, but somehow it just escaped from your mind and you weren't conscious of it somehow. So, what is the revelation concerning the God's face to face experience? It is this. And I think I was praying to Saint Charbel on this month was his feast day. And he's one of my spiritual husbands. And I think I expected something from him because it was his feast day and he's one of my husbands. And I think it was I didn't write it down the exact date, but I think it was the day of his. And I said to him, Saint Charbel, I would like you to give me a gift because it's your feast day and you're my spiritual husband. But I'm not going to suggest anything. I will let you decide. And it's kind of like St. Patrick. I have never ever suggested to St. Patrick to give me a gift or what to give me or what I want ever. And yet, every St. Patrick's Day, he gives me a gift. And this has been going on for about 40 years. Out of the clear blue sky, St. Patrick started giving me a gift, something, every St. Patrick's Day. And the only thing that I can surmise why he's, choosing to honor me in this way is because my stage name was Kelly. And I named my daughter Kelly. And my stage name was Kelly Everts. So maybe that's why I honored Ireland with the name, because a guy said that to me. I said, I haven't decided what to name my daughter. And he said, why not honor all of Ireland and call her Kelly? And I said, it was an old guy. This guy was like an elder in my apartment building where I lived there in Santa Monica, and that's what he said. I said, I like that. I like that. And I named my daughter Kelly. And then when I became a model, all of a sudden they needed me to write down a name, and I didn't want to write down my real name. It was a long, long time ago. I was like 20 years old, 19 or 20, and they wanted a name. I go, I don't know what name to put, so I put Kelly, just because it was the first name that came to my mind, and I didn't even know I would keep using that name. I didn't know that. It was just a fake name for the day because I didn't want to put my real name, and I ended up with the name Kelly Evers. So that's the story on that. So that's why the only thing I can think of why St. Patrick would from heaven send me a gift every St. Patrick's Day, because he goes, there's my Irish girlfriend, Kelly. No, I'm just joking. But so I didn't want to tell St. Charbel what I want. And I believe it was on that day that I got this revelation. Now, what is this revelation that I always knew? But suddenly I knew it again in a new and different way, and it got my head somewhat in a better place. Well, it's about God's face-to-face experience. And that is this. This is the revelation. When I see God face to face, excuse me a second. When I see God face to face, I am going to see myself. I know that sounds preposterous, but it's not. You see, we are made of two different, you could even say three components, like the Holy Trinity, you know. But it's basically two phases or two components of something. We are human and divine. Our soul, we are not a body, we are a soul, an eternal, infinite soul, a drop in the ocean of God, which temporarily inhabits a body on earth. And then when that body is done with its life, that soul goes back wherever it's supposed to be. Hopefully it goes straight back to heaven, which does not happen to too many people, but hopefully, if everything is perfect, that soul goes straight back to God, straight back to heaven. You are divine. You might not realize your divinity, but if you are enlightened or self-realized, you will. That's what you realize when you are self-realized. You realize, oh, I am divine. Oh, I am God. I am one with God. God and I are not two different things. So this is something I knew, but when it came time to describing and explaining and discussing the face-to-face experience of God on this podcast, once again I began to envision God with the new vision I have of God. I have a new vision of God, which I have shared again and again on the podcast, if anyone heard or listened or read my descriptions. And that is that, and that is a big revelation that God gave me at the end of 2023. God's body is the infinite universe. The infinite universe is God's body. The infinite universe. And God's spirit is what is not physical, because the universe is physical. So God, what is not physical is also God, the other part of God. So we're the same way. We are both physical and non-physical. Okay, so being that this infinite new concept of God that I was given, and when I was envisioning myself seeing God face to face, I had forgot that when I saw God face to face in 1982, twice, two different occasions, it was February 13th and March 23rd, 1982. And I knew that when I saw God face to face and I saw the infinite golden ocean of God, the infinite golden ocean, I knew that it was me, that it was God. I knew it was God, but I also knew it was me. I knew that God and I are the same thing. We are one. God is me and I am God. And the infinite ocean, golden ocean, where I could not see the horizon kept expanding. Every time I looked to see the horizon, it expanded, it went further. And I looked again and it went further. And I looked again and it went further because it was the infinite horizon, the horizon of infinity. And that is, so I instead of remembering, I saw God and it was me. Instead of remembering that, I kept envisioning, oh, the infinite essence of God, the infinite, ineffable essence, infinite essence of God. God is, and I started envisioning God as a different being than me. And how is this being going to look at me? How is this being going to judge me? How is this being going to evaluate me? How am I going to please this being, which is the old-fashioned way of seeing God? The old-fashioned, not the self-realized, enlightened way of looking at God, but the traditional old-fashioned way, you better be good or God will punish you way. You better please God, you better behave, watch your P's and Q's or you will not be pleasing to God. It's like God is over there and you are over here. It's like God created the world and she rested on the seventh day and then God created us. It's not like an enlightened vision of God. It's the traditional way that patriarchs have taught us about God. It's the traditional way. And it's not a yoga way, the way yogis look at it. It's not that way. Okay, so now, so the revelation I had on St. Charbel's day was, remember, when you see God face to face, you will see the God within you. Bingo! What? Oh, I completely forgot. I am struggling to see the God within me, my own mother God, who I talk to every day, who's so familiar. Not this God far away in outer space, in another world far away. And all of a sudden I came down to earth and I said, Mother God, why didn't you just tell me and remind me, hey, Rasa, remember me? The one you talk to every day when you call on Mother God for help to interpret your dreams or what to do next or how to do this or how to do that or what will happen here, what will happen there, this, that, and the other. I'm the one you chat with constantly, me? Yeah. Remember me? I'm the one you're going to see face to face. You're going to become me. In other words, myself, me. It's when I heard first, 1971 was the first time I heard the still small voice of God. And it was as clear as a bell. And I said, who are you? It was 1971. And the voice said, I am you. What do you mean you're me? I'm me. How can you be me when I'm me? And God did not explain it. She did not explain anything in words, in theological words. She did not. She said, she did not say, I am your divine nature. She did not say, I am your soul. She did not say, I am the God within you. She did not say that. She said, I am you. That's all she kept repeating. And so I had no idea clearly who she was. I just knew that, and this voice stayed with me until I made a mistake, and I had a guru, a living female guru, who said, you mustn't listen to your voice anymore, listen to me. Me. I'm higher up, I'm older, I'm wiser. You're listening to your inner voice. You're not as evolved as me, you're not as experienced as me. Obey me, listen to me. And I took a chance, and I listened to her, and I said, okay. And that voice shut down. Don't ever, ever, ever shut down your God within you. Because I've never been able to recapture that voice as clear as a bell as long as I lived. And that was 1971, 72. I've never been able to get that voice back clear as a bell. I can hear the voice, but it's in my mind. It's not like audible in my ears like a bell, clear. And I don't know how to get it back. But once I realized that I was trying to see the God within me, once again, like I had already done, it just changed the whole equation. I said, I wish I could remember the state of mind I was in those days when I made such incredible progress. And I began to do the mantra, I am God. I am the ineffable, infinite God. That's who I am. That's who you are. So you have a legitimate right to say, legitimate, not deluded. You know, there are deluded people. I have heard lowlifes. I have heard lowlifes say, I am God. That's what's called the baby God complex. I knew a guy who used to constantly say that. He was a lowlife. Believe me, he was a lowlife. He was a thief. He was a pedophile. He was a criminal. He was truly evil. A young guy. He was like 22 when I met him. And he used to say on his Facebook, I used to see his Facebook, and he used to say, I am God. He was deluded. So there are demons. There are demons and deluded and mental cases and nut jobs and quacks who will say, I am God, but they're not talking about reality. They are talking about something else. But for a person who is close to God, who loves God, and who has an understanding of spirituality and is serious about spirituality, you have a right to say, I am God. Ramana Maharshi, if he didn't do much talking, but if he did, he would have said, he could have said, he would have said, I am God. Because he was one with God. One. See, he entered his divine nature. His divine nature, you could say, came to him and he came to it. There was non-duality. He did not love anyone else in the sense of, I lost mine. I was in non-duality in 2007. I entered the state of non-duality with his help. He helped me. Ramana Maharshi. He helped me. And when I started, God wanted me to go out and be a cougar, and I went out and I did what God wanted me to. I did, but I lost my intimacy with God. And when I fell in love with a certain man, then I really lost it. Because he became before God because I was in love. I was obsessively in love with him. So I'm telling you, you want to see God face to face, you can't be in love. Nothing can be above God. Your family cannot be above God. Your husband, your spouse, your boyfriend, whoever you're in love with, anyone you adore or worship or admire cannot be obsessive, absolute. They all have to be a sideline. You admire somebody, you love somebody, So you can't see the life of the family and the life of the hermit who's intimate with God and sees God face to face are not compatible. Because your mind, I've said this before and I have to keep repeating it. Some things you keep repeating. We keep repeating the gospel. We keep repeating what Jesus did, how he died on the cross to help pay for our sins. He didn't pay for all our sins, but he's a conduit. He's a savior. If we believe in him and pray to him and follow his teachings, most of all, follow his teachings and do what he teaches us. Follow his example, follow his words. His example and words are the same as Buddhism. Jesus was a reincarnated Buddhist guru. So when you follow him, you're following the same thing that Buddha taught. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are the unfortunate. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Blessed are the persecuted. Blessed are those who are persecuted for my sake, for God's sake. They will be in heaven. They will have the kingdom of heaven. It's the opposite of seeking status. Like Buddha, he left status. He left the kingdom where he was to be the next king. He left. They had this complex of a controlled environment where everything was regal, wealthy, luxurious, privileged. But he wanted something else, and he left and he went into the jungle to suffer asceticism, to fast, to starve, to follow mortification, the way Jesus taught us mortification and poverty. He's teaching the same thing, mortification and poverty, except eventually Buddha said, go the middle way. You don't have to go to that extreme that I went to, because he was in an extreme. He was with a bunch of guys that were ascetics, and they were all trying to outdo each other with like starvation and so so Jesus was not always in a place of suffering and poverty. He lived with his holy mother and Saint Joseph. He followed the middle way. He was in the middle way, and when he was ministering to the people before he suffered his passion, he suffered, but he also was in between the middle way. He wasn't poor, he wasn't rich. He ate and drank, normally. Drank wine. He ate, I don't know if he ate meat, but I know he ate fish. I'm not sure if he ate the Paschal lamb. There's a debate on that. Some people say yes, some people say no. Saint Mary of Agreda says that when Jesus lived with his holy mother, that's after Saint Joseph. Well, no, Saint Joseph was still alive, but he was ill for about 8 years, she says. She says that Jesus and Mary only ate bread, fish, sometimes fish, and fruits and vegetables, that he did not eat meat. They did not eat meat. But she prepared meat for Saint Joseph because he was sick and he needed strength, extra strength. So she gave him extra food, but she said sometimes they only ate bread. But I'm sure it wasn't Wonder Bread. It was whole wheat bread. Healthy, real, nutritious, I mean to say. Super nutritious bread, the kind you get in those Russian bakeries or those bakeries where they make it, fermented grain, and they add flax or oats or different kind of whole grains and different kind of healthy items. That's probably, I don't really know. I'm imagining. What do I know what they ate 2,000 years ago? And she didn't say, St. Mary of Agreda didn't say what kind of bread. I'm only imagining what kind of bread. But I'm imagining healthy bread. Okay, so sometimes they ate, she said, sometimes the two of them only ate bread. But sometimes they ate bread with fruits, or I don't know if they ate the fruits later, after, or before. Sometimes they ate vegetables. She didn't describe how Holy Mary prepared the vegetables. She didn't describe that. Were they raw? Were they cooked? She didn't say. She didn't explain. And fish. I know for sure Jesus ate fish because he was, one time he was helping his disciples to catch fish. One time they were fishing and they couldn't catch anything. And he says, throw your net on the other side. And they did. And they caught 153 fish. And another time, and in fact, it was after his death or passing out or death, whatever you believe. I believe passing out, but some people believe death. Whatever you want to believe, it's okay with me. But he was there on the shore, and his disciples were fishing again, and he had a fire, and he was grilling fish, and I think he had bread, and he called them, or maybe he asked them to bring some fish so he could fry it for them, and he grilled it on the fire. And at that time, they didn't know it was Jesus, so it must not have been him in person, but he must have possessed the body of a man. Because saints sometimes do that. Jesus and Mary sometimes do that. They possess the body of a living person with their spirit. Their spirit possesses that person. I had Jesus possess the body of a priest in a church. I was the only person there, and that's when Jesus called me to become a priestess. Through that priest called me up to the altar. I was sitting there waiting for communion, and then I looked up at him to see why he wasn't arriving with the Holy Communion. I was the only one in the church. And he was a brand new priest I'd never ever seen before or since. A younger priest. There were two older guys. This was a younger guy. And he called me. And I went up, and he gave me the host. And behind the altar, not in front of the altar, behind. He called me behind the altar. And he gave me the host, the Eucharist. And then he gave me the chalice with the blood of Jesus and Mary. And I ate and drank. I went back. And then when I left, I was walking on air. And then when I left, as soon as I closed the big medieval door, it was a Gothic church, and I was outside in the light, I said, ah, that was Jesus. He answered my prayer. Because I said, give me a sign if you want women to be priests. Give me a sign. He called me to be a priestess. He wants women priests. So that, why do I say that was Jesus? Jesus' spirit possessed the body of that man, that priest. That's what I mean by it was Jesus. So these disciples several times saw Jesus. And that day when he was giving them, he says, come here, boys, and have some fish and bread. And then after they were there for a little bit, they suddenly recognized that it was Jesus. And then there was another time they were on their way to Emmaus. That's a town. And a man was walking with them, and they were depressed and grieving about Jesus' crucifixion. And the strange man said, what's wrong? Why are you so unhappy? And they said, haven't you heard? Are you the only one who hasn't heard about the great man, our leader, our mentor? He was arrested and crucified, terribly tortured and crucified and died. And so the man began teaching them as they walked. The man was teaching them how everything had to be for a reason. And they listened. They liked the man so much, they were stopping at somebody's house, probably a relative or a friend, probably maybe a relative, I imagine, because they were stopping to have dinner and maybe stay overnight. And they said to the man, "Stay with us. Don't go." He was going to go on. He said, "Stay." They said, "Stay with us. Stay with us." So he went into the house with them, and they were having dinner, and then the man broke the bread to pass it around. And as soon as he broke the bread, they said, "It's Jesus." They recognized that it was Jesus. Jesus had possessed the body of this stranger. And this stranger was teaching them why all the terrible things that happened to Jesus had to happen for the salvation of mankind. Because he said, didn't he tell you what would happen? Wasn't it predicted in the old scriptures? Don't you understand that it had to be? And so on and so forth. And he comforted them that way, you see. All right, so now back to my subject. You have a right to say, "I am God." Now, you, in your consciousness, now, all of us, including me, now, in our consciousness, in our day to day life, we function in a time and space capsule. Our mind, our brain is here and now, not in eternity. Our soul is in eternity. Our soul is in the everlasting, the infinite. Our soul is infinite and lives in an infinite world. And we're lucky if we can communicate with our soul through the still small voice and through our minds. We are lucky to have this communication system, see? Not everyone can do it, but the mystics can do it. I'm a mystic, so I can do it. But I worked at it from the time I was probably 21, 22. I started working on it like a lot. And I had a female guru who taught me how to channel. And I just told you about her, but I shouldn't have given up my still small voice for her guruhood. I should not have. Never give up your still small voice for anyone. I don't care what anyone tells you. Never give up your still small voice. It is your greatest guide and your greatest, as long as you're not deluded or mentally ill, you're not psycho, you're not hearing hallucinogenic voices like a schizophrenic might or a mentally ill person might. So as long as you're sane, I hope I am. Some people say I'm crazy, especially when they hear me talk like this. "Oh, she's crazy," because they don't understand you, so then they call you crazy. They called Jesus crazy, said he was deluded, said he was a magician, said he was obeying the devil, said that he was doing his miracles through Satan. Jesus said, "If I did these miracles through Satan, how could his kingdom continue? He would be destroyed. He's doing exorcism, so how would he be doing an exorcism, removing Satan by the power of Satan?" It didn't make nothing that they said, the evil, envious Pharisees and Levites and Jews and Herodians and all those evil Hebrews said and did concerning Jesus was righteous. It was all purely demonic, what they were doing and what they were saying about Jesus. It was all purely demonic. Okay, so now you back to the original subject. You have a right to say and do the mantra. See if it works. Maybe you'll get closer to God that way. I am God. See, one of the things that the non-dual gurus put you through is you are not the body. Of course, you're in the body temporarily, but that's not who you are. You're in the body temporarily. It's a temporary abode. It's like I live in my house, but I'm not my house. This is my house. You're looking at it. But I'm not my house. This is my body. But I am not my body. My body is a temporary shelter. And they say God does not live in buildings. That's in the Bible. God does not live in buildings. Of course, the presence of God sometimes is in a building. But God lives in our hearts. God lives inside of us. When they tell you the kingdom of God is near, Jesus said, don't go running here, don't go running there. Don't look here, nor there, nor there, nor there. Look in here, look in here. God is within you. So you have a right to say, I am God. That's the real me. I'm not the body. I'm not my job. You know, like it reminds you of Taxi Driver. The guy says, who am I? I don't know who I am. And so the guy says, you're a taxi driver. Stupid. You're not a taxi driver. You're not a physician. You're not a nurse. You're not a school teacher. You're not a truck driver. You're not a farmer. You're not a factory worker. You're not an accountant. You're not a CEO of a company. That's not who you are. You are a creation of God that's came out of God, and you have the substance of God within you. Whether or not you know it, whether or not you can recognize it, whether or not you can be in touch with this great being within you. If and when you do, I'll say, hello, you are enlightened. Hello, you are self-realized. And I heard one guru said, a lady, I can't remember her name. I wish I could, but I don't. She was well known. Well, each guru is well known to their disciples at the time. It was a while back I was reading about her, and she said, you're going to have to learn that in order to be enlightened or self-realized, you have to, what do you have to give up? What do you have to do? Because people think, well, if I give up this and that and that and that, I ought to be great with God. I ought to be really spiritual. I ought to be really, enlightened and blah, blah, blah. And I ought to be perfect. And she said, I remember she said, you have to give up everything for God. What does that mean? You have to give up the love of anything above God. You cannot love a man or a woman. You cannot love your organization. You cannot even love your religion, your cultural framework of your religion. Oh, I'm a born-again Christian. Oh, I'm a fundamentalist, and I'm right with God. You can't. God doesn't save groups. Some people think, my religion is the greatest, and we're all going to be saved. No way. God doesn't save groups. God doesn't save all the Carmelites. God doesn't save all the Jesuits. God doesn't save all the Sisters of Charity. It's an individual journey. It's an individual one by one path, road, journey. There's no group salvation ever. There's no one group that is chosen by God. I don't care what the old-time Jews said. The Hebrews, they thought they were chosen. Who said they were chosen? They did, not God. And God also told them to kill people. Abraham was told to kill his son Isaac. Yeah, right. That wasn't God. That was his deluded, patriarchal, mixed up, deluded mind. I got a lot of bad to say about the Old Testament and their ways. They're old patriarchal mumbo jumbo. That's what they were, patriarchal mumbo jumbo. All right. So that's the new revelation. So now so I had to change my mental framework and remember, Rasa, when you saw God face to face, you saw yourself. So that changed something. That changed something. Okay, to recap, I'm going to show off the dress again because I showed it way in the beginning, and maybe people who came in later have not yet seen the beauty of this dress. It's all sequins. Oh boy, I can't get in the right position with this chair, but maybe if I stand up, just stand up, see. You can see it's all solid sequins. It's a mini skirt, but it's almost all solid sequins, and it was not expensive, so I don't throw my money around. I call it whatever money I have belongs to God. It's church money, so I'm not going to be throwing church money around on luxuries. Now, you might say this is a luxury. If I told you the price, you wouldn't believe me. It was reasonable. Because you can get things from China, beautiful things that are very, very reasonable. Very reasonable. Amazingly so. So that's what I did. Okay, so back to seeing God face to face. We're still on that kick. I've been on that project now. How long has it been? Approximately a month, which is not a long time for achieving the greatest accomplishment that a human could, that I can think of. Okay, you might argue about that. And some people might agree with me. The greatest accomplishment, in some sense, again, how could you argue something like that? What is the greatest accomplishment on earth? But it's got to be at least one of the greatest accomplishments you could ever make on earth, is to see God face to face. So, what, 3-4 weeks is not a very long time to get there, is there? Is it? It's like, if you can see God face to face, it would be like winning not 3 gold medals in the Olympics, but winning every single discipline or sport in the Olympics. You would get a gold medal in it. How likely is that? Now, I know some people have gotten, I think 3. I'm not sure. But I think the most anybody ever got, was it Mark Spitz for swimming or somebody? I don't. And that other guy that turned into a woman, I think he got some gold medals. How many? I don't remember. He got a few. He was a big shot. Can't remember his name. As a man or a woman, I can't remember neither one. You are God. You have a divine nature. Claim your divine nature. Work towards your divine nature. Take your divine nature seriously. Don't be afraid of God. God is closer to you than you are, if that makes sense. There's nothing closer to you than God. How does God know everything about you? You can't lie to God because God's inside you. God never leaves you. God never leaves you. Neither does your guardian angel or angels. Some people have more than one. I have 3 because I needed them. Still do. God will give you whatever angels you need. When Jesus and Mary were together on earth, they had something like, well, Mary by herself had 10,000 angels. Imagine the need she had to be protected, bringing the Lord into the world, and how the devil would want to. And she was so virtuous. He didn't know. He didn't know the mystery of the incarnation and whether Jesus was the Messiah and whether Mary was the mother of the Messiah. He didn't know any of that. That was not given to him to know. But he knew that how righteous and how virtuous and how holy she was. He could see it, and he tried to destroy her through people. Usually they try to destroy you through people. When the devil wants to destroy you, the easiest way to reach you to destroy you is through, usually through people. And he tried to do that to Mary, but God didn't let him. God didn't let him succeed, but God had this 10,000 angels, her 10,000 angels. And then when Jesus and Mary were together, he had even more angels. I mean, it was like 20,000 angels or more watching over them at all times. And the only time that Jesus permitted himself, and God permitted him, to be hurt, seriously hurt, was when he did it for our salvation. If he had not permitted it, they couldn't have touched him. They couldn't have arrested him. They couldn't have condemned him. They couldn't have tortured him. They couldn't have crucified him. They couldn't have done anything without his and the Almighty's permission. He came to earth to do what he did. That was his destiny. And you, my individual friend, you came to earth to do whatever you had to do. You chose, according to what I have heard from experts and from NDE people, near-death experience people. They say we choose our lives according to what we want to learn and experience. And sometimes it's a karma that we have to pay off because maybe we were a slave owner in the old days and we were exploiting slaves, and now we become a slave to learn how terrible it is to be a slave. Or maybe you were a slave then, but now God has given you a break and now you're free and happy in this lifetime. So you learn, you don't live once. You live hundreds and thousands of times to fulfill what your soul wants to learn, and your soul evolves into a higher and higher radiance, because there's a trillion mansions. In my Father's house there are many mansions. There's a trillion states in eternity of differing radiances. If you're not a very good person, but you're saved, compared to the great saints, you might be in a dim place, but you'll be in heaven. You'll be in heaven if you repented of your sins. But you might be in a dim place and not in a brilliant place. But if you have really fulfilled a tremendous destiny and obeyed God and were virtuous and did what you had to do, and you might be in a absolutely astounding, brilliant, remarkable, wonderful height. And the higher up you are in radiance, the more ecstasy you have. Ecstasy, joy, happiness. And the higher you go, this kind of made me happy. Maybe you'll think I'm bad to think this. But I don't know if I should even tell you this. I don't know. Well, when you go to heaven, you don't have to associate with anybody that is lower than you in heaven. The onus is on you who you will associate with. Because there are some people in heaven that I did not want to see. And I thought, oh, I hope I don't have to see these people in heaven, because they would ruin my heaven. They would tarnish it, not ruin it, but tarnish it. It would be just a depressing thought to see certain people in heaven. Certain people, but they are in heaven, because I've seen them there. And God told me, you don't have to worry. You can see them if you wish. They cannot reach you. They cannot touch you if you are higher than them. If you are higher than them in heaven, they cannot touch you. See, I cannot go there and I just say, I want to see Joan of Arc and I want to shake her hands. But if she's higher up than me, it's her choice. It's her choice if she wants to have any communication with me. It's her choice. And you think, well, I don't really know all the answers. Everybody thinks, oh, when I go to heaven, I'm going to see Jesus. I'm not so sure. Don't be too sure. You might be in heaven, but you might not see Jesus or Mary or any of the great saints. You might not. There's no absolute guarantee. You could be in heaven, but not necessarily, it might not be exactly what you think it will be. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye for now. Until we meet again, stay well, stay happy, stay with God. Try not to be depressed. Offer up your sufferings for God. Accept whatever you cannot change as the will of God and think, this might be the will of God. Let me live with it. Let me deal with it and let me accept it and see what good will come out of it, because good will come out of everything if you love God. To those who love God, all things turn out for good. So do not despair. Do not be sad. Do not think you are being punished by God when bad things happen. Offer up your sufferings in union with Jesus and Mary and all the saints, and offer them for the souls in purgatory, and they will be helped and you will be helped. Amen. And God bless you. Stay well and happy. See you next time.